Are you tired of all the overly restrictive shooters out there? Do you want some freedom in how you play? Or are you just looking for a mindless, fun-filled gore fest to rampage through over the weekend? If you said yes to any of these questions, or better yet, all three, Soldier of Fortune Payback has got you covered. Critically panned by everyone upon its release, and even to this day, I was left scratching my head as to what all the hate was for because this game is tons of fun. Granted, if you were a big fan of the first two Soldier of Fortunes and expected something equally great, then Payback most likely didn't deliver. I wouldn't know because I've never played those games, but what I do know is that Payback is related in name only. So I can understand that hate to some extent, but as for all of the other hate, I'm still clueless. So what is Soldier of Fortune Payback? It's a first-person shooter where you run through the levels, shoot bad guys, watch their blood, guts, and limbs go flying everywhere, and that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. It might not seem like much by itself, but it's the little things that make it so awesome. For starters, scripted events. There are none. There's two ways you play Payback. You play the game, and you watch the cutscenes. That's it. There's no areas where the game shoehorns in a QuickTime event or one of those Call of Duty pedestrian simulators where you can only move your character and the camera and can't fire your gun or do anything else. There's nothing like that here. The levels are linear, but the sky's the limit here with how you want to play. Payback isn't going to force you into a case of, you need to do this next set of events exactly how we tell you to, or we're gonna insta-kill your ass. Play Payback however you want. You want to stare at the sky all day? Go right ahead. Nothing is stopping you. This alone makes Payback better than damn near any other shooter released across the 7th generation of gaming. And further adding to the awesomeness is that there are no areas where the enemies infinitely respawn, and every single cutscene in Payback can be easily skipped with the push of a button, whether it's during the level itself or the mission briefings in between levels. Payback works how a first-person shooter is supposed to work, and for people to call this game a Call of Duty ripoff is complete horseshit. Payback is the furthest thing from Call of Duty. Secondly, boss battles. Not many shooters today have them. In Payback's case, they're completely unremarkable for the most part, consisting of a random bad guy with a very big health bar, but there is this one fight against a helicopter that stands out. You don't need anything special to take it out, just pump a whole bunch of bullets into it. But what makes it so unique is that every time you pass a certain stage of the fight, the music changes to indicate that it's getting weaker. The game will also autosave when this happens. This is a big help since it takes quite a few bullets to kill this thing, and you're not constantly asking yourself, Jesus, when is this thing gonna die? What makes this even better is that this battle was done so well using such a simple design. Making a boss battle in an FPS is difficult enough. Making a good one is next to impossible, yet Payback manages to do it. Another thing I really like about Payback is that you can customize your guns before the start of each level. You can add scopes, silencers, which silencers make no sense because there's no stealth mechanic in this game, grenade launchers, grips, all sorts of good stuff. I always like being able to customize my guns. It's a nice touch that most shooters today, again, don't have. In Payback's case, this too helps a lot because Payback is not an easy game. Enemies frequently pop out of nowhere. All of them make no noise when moving, so they can sneak up on you and kill you at point-blank range very easily, and many times you'll be facing enemies that are so well hidden or in such awkward spots that you won't know where you're being attacked from because even their gunfire will be almost muted from the range they're shooting at you. Your health does regenerate, but you can't absorb too many bullets. You'll die in Payback. A lot. Especially on your first playthrough, so being able to add a long-range scope to your gun can make all the difference in the world. What's even better is that most of your enemies in each level will have at least one of the guns that you can select before you start it. In some cases they'll have two, so you can add a long-range scope to one and a simple laser dot to another and swap back and forth depending on how close they are. It's fucking awesome. If you want to use this method, you'll have to restart the mission. Now, if you actually want to use this method, though, you can't just hit restart level. What you have to do is actually quit to the main menu, reselect the mission you were just playing, and then you can customize your guns all over again. That might seem like you're losing a lot of ground, but it's really not. Payback is broken up into 4 major areas comprised of several smaller levels. Well, technically 5 if you count the one area with only one mission in it. Now, I kind of fibbed with you back there when I said you could customize your guns before the start of each level, because by default, without quitting back to the main menu and reselecting the level you were just in, you can only customize your guns at the start of each main area, not the smaller individual levels that the main area is comprised of. But it's not that big of a deal. Each level here is typically only about 10 to 15 minutes long, 20 at the most. And every time you see a loading screen, you'll have moved on to another one of the smaller levels in the main area. So you're only really losing maybe 3 minutes of time by doing this. All you have to do is find the first rifle that the enemy's carrying, quit to the main menu, select it in the customization menu, and you'll be right back where you were with a virtually unlimited supply of ammo. Oh, you know what I just realized? I haven't talked about the story, graphics, or sound at all. Let's see. Payback looks pretty. No complaints there. The music, sound effects, and voice acting all get the job done. No complaints there either. As for the story, it's really just there. Yeah, it's nothing bad. It's nothing cringeworthy, but it really only serves to just keep the levels running. That's it. But you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that. Yeah, me, a guy who used to play shooters exclusively for the story. Anyways, moving on. Now it's unfortunately time for the bad side of Payback, which, thankfully, the problems with this game are minor. The first problem I have is that after about 30 seconds, the bodies and blood of the bad guys disappear. It doesn't annoy me that much, considering that you move from one area to the next without any time to stop and think most of the time, but there will be that occasion where you'll have to hunker down for a prolonged gunfight, and then once you reach the area where the bad guys were, you'll see a bunch of guns scattered all over the place. It kind of takes away the immersion, but it's not that big a deal. Secondly, mounted machine guns. They're fucking useless. If you don't believe me, look at the footage. What exactly am I supposed to be following here? The targeting reticule or the direction that the gun geometry is pointing in? Not only that, but these guns have a ludicrous amount of recoil in comparison to every other gun in this game, which have almost no recoil. You'll only use these things a couple of times, and thankfully every time you use them you have the option to not use them. So do what I did, get on the gun, get off the gun, then hide behind a wall and pick the bad guys off. One irritating part that really stands out though is about halfway through the game where you have to escort this slave back the way you just came, and I noticed that I kept on randomly dying for some reason. And I was wondering why that was, and it turns out you have to actually protect this guy. In the past, this didn't happen to me. So as a result, I thought the slave was indestructible, but it turns out he's not. And you can't order him to stay put or anything like that, so you have to blindly run alongside him and pray he doesn't get shot up too much. I recommend a light machine gun in this case. The last gripe I have is during the last 3 levels, Payback becomes absurdly difficult. We're talking guys who are able to one-shot you across the room in 2 seconds flat with damn near any kind of gun. I know I said Payback is a pretty tough game already, but the level of difficulty in the last 3 levels puts Dark Souls to shame. So if you have to drop the difficulty to easy, don't be ashamed, because that's what I had to do. And that's pretty much it. Payback is more than worth playing, but the real question is, where should you play it? It was released across the PC, the Xbox 360, and the PS3. PC wins, hands down. At the time of this review, Payback is almost 9 years old, so any rig off the shelf of Best Buy should be able to run it just fine. There's no graphics options to adjust, only the resolution, and there doesn't seem to be a resolution beyond 1680 by 1050. Also, if you have a computer using any OS other than Windows XP, download the Vista patch. Payback will be unplayable without it. I even left a download link for you guys in the text. As far as Windows 7 64-bit is confirmed, Payback works perfectly. Beyond that, I don't know. As for the consoles, the 360 port isn't bad, especially if you want to use a gamepad since the PC port doesn't have any support for one. It does have its moments where the frame rate bogs down pretty bad, and the majority of load times can last up to 30 seconds, so if you can get it up and running, you'll have a much smoother experience on the computer. As for the PS3 port, I don't remember much of it. I only played it a little, and I remember the frame rate being total garbage, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. Anyways, at the end of the day, Soldier of Fortune Payback comes highly recommended in my book. It's tons of fun, it's a fucking awesome game, it's the ideal game that you want to pick up if you want a gore fest to rampage through over the weekend.